Thank you so much, choir. Welcome to all of us this morning to the Parrsboro United Baptist Church. Thank you for blessing us with your presence. And our cry to the Lord is that He might bring refreshing and blessing to you as you share with us in this time of worship. Take note of just a few words in that text that we have just read. Obey. Bring up your children. Render good service. Doing the will of God from the heart. Masters, do the same things. With God, there is no partiality. Today, we conclude our brief series in the matter of this institution called family. We started in the place where we did point out that all relationships are meant to be ones in which we are of service to one another, especially if we belong to the household of faith. We serve God to begin with. We serve saints following that. And we save those who are in society with us, because that is what God has done in the person of His Son. And we do realize this is best understood by looking to begin with where all relationships begin, in that relationship between husband and wife. When those two are healthy and when those two are happy in the way they relate, that spills over to almost every relationship, because all relationships are sourced in them. And then we went on to see that it is important to realize that there is this relationship between parent and child and parent. That the child is to actually yield to parentage and the guidance, direction, instruction that comes from there. But it is the parent who must actually give the child codes to follow, because the parent realizes no one will be concerned about their own child the way they themselves are. And so they're the primary instructors, the primary guides, the primary counselors, the primary helps to their children, so that church and school and friends and other only complement what the parent is doing. And you don't leave the upbringing of the child, the good influence in the child's life, to others. You are the best influence. And we said it is important for us to realize that. And having seen that, now we come to say, okay, where does this all take us? It takes us now into all the relationships, wherever they turn out to be in the world in which we are. And to just make it sound good, that's why we say the extended family. Does not the Apostle Paul begin his writing in 1 Timothy 5 with the words, to the young pastor Timothy, treat older men not harshly, but as fathers. So do not rebuke older men harshly, but treat them as fathers. And treat younger men as brothers. Treat older women as mothers. And treat younger women as sisters. And then it says, in all purity. In other words, in absolute purity. Do not neglect any relationship or look down on it, but rather have respect for all relationships. So that in the way you relate to all, none will miss, that you accept them for who they are, respect them as such, and will be of service. In other words, it's almost the moment they see you, they hear it in you, and they see it in you, they feel it in you, you're saying to them, how may I be of help? How may I be a blessing? How may I refresh you? How may I lift you up? That's exactly what the apostle is saying. And that's what this text is calling us to be. So that we may be blessings to one another, helps to one another, inspirations to one another, motivators of one another, encouragers of one another. Are all and not some levels. And the apostle, in writing then to the Ephesians, does break it up very well for us, does he not? For he says, you who have been given birth to and realize you belong to your parents, you don't just belong to your parents, you belong to the rest of society. It's important that you should identify who you are in relation to the rest of society, so that as you relate to them in line with who God has appointed you to be among those people. And that is why we begin to see in this text repeatedly, obey as unto the Lord, according to the will of God, not as men pleases, but as God pleases, and as those who realize that as far as God is concerned, there is no king or slave, but everyone is human. And he appoints he appoints certain positions so that humanity might have some order, humanity might avoid confusion, humanity might not prey on one another, but humanity might get on with a certain level of harmony that makes them and be unlike animals, but come out as really who they are, human. And it is interesting in the text before us, it invites us to have an examination of ourselves. And the first question we ask ourselves is, are we workers? Am I a worker? Are you a worker? Now I know that immediately we begin to think, who am I? A janitor? A truck driver? A nurse? A doctor? An administrator? There's nothing wrong with being any of those. But I want to think very differently in the course of this morning. I want you to think that work is referring to your relationship with others. Notice it begins, children, obey. So if you are a child, here's your work. Obey your parents. Serve your parents. Be good to your parents. Steer the heart of your parents to the point of delight. Make them proud of you. Make them delight in you. Make them be unashamed of saying about you, that is my son. That is my daughter. That is my child. And about you parents, notice how it says, you be the ones who inject goodness in your children. You know, there are several mothers who say, are you working? No. You don't work? No. I'm just a housewife. What better work can there be than that? You are a housewife. You are at the heart of where society is either made or spoiled. You are taking care of that man called husband, the father of your children, the undertaker to your dependents, if you have any, and so on and so forth. You're right at the source of where the whole thing begins. Who says you don't work? Being a mother is a full-time job. So is being a wife. And that's what it's saying. Be faithful in that relationship. Be true in that relationship. Be admirable in that relationship. Sell off as one who is faithful and true and able to inject into others. It's good to be a wife. It's fabulous to be a mother. It's excellent to be one who oversees those under her house. As one woman would do when she went over to her pastor and says, "Pastor, I feel the call into ministry." And the pastor says, "How many children do you have?" And she says, 7. So the pastor says, "Well, go thank God for the house in the church in your house. Go and pastor that church." It's a full-time job to be a parent. And notice what it says. Do not make your children angry. In other words, there are so many instances in which our children try us. Just using the back of the hand and bow, whack it. And sometimes we've done it, haven't we? And then we remember the anger took the better of us. What? I'm confusing my child. I go and cuddle it and pet it and hold it in my hands, and then with the same hands I'm bang. What do we think? Is this an instrument of anger or an instrument of comfort, an instrument of what? What? I'm confusing it. And so it's up to us as parents to begin to think, what are we going to be like? What are we going to do to inject into our children that we are servants, to bring them up nicely, to nurture them in the way they should come up to the point which they should be able to say, "I am glad I had you for my parent." All of us about whom our children are unable to say that should be ashamed of ourselves. We have the first opportunity to influence those young things because they are born at our laps and they are at our disposal right from their innocence to the time they are able to make their own decisions. And if we are good to these children, we are able to make them feel, "You're the best thing that has ever happened to my life." And they will want at every area of their lives to come back and say, "Mama, Daddy, what should I do in this situation?" Have we had that kind of influence on our children? Or they'd rather go elsewhere? Because when it turns to us, they feel like, "Yeah, you gave me nothing but a headache." There are parents, sadly, who are born like that. The hands that should have comforted them caused them pain. And the life that should have soothed them was sour to them. And so they turn their back on their own parent. And to some children, the very mention of a parent makes them fall sick. Don't you be that parent. No, don't. But notice, if it's talking about children, if it's talking about parents, then it's talking about people, for it talks about slaves. Slaves. People serve one another. People, you servants, serve as serving others. So people who should be serving people, this is who we should be. I love the way Timothy begins listening in to Paul when he's told, regard all relationships. Because it says, don't you begin to think there's nobody who you should not serve. Chris and your friend, are you listening? Mm-hmm. All right. You know, be careful. Pour your whole soul into the lives of your people, into the lives of those you associate with, into the lives of those who as long as they cross your path, pour your whole into them. People serving people. And people, all people, serving people, not as we dream, but as God wants us to serve one another. For it says, not as those who are making others happy simply because they are looking at us, but who make others happy even when they are not looking at us. I think I did say this to you at some point. I was listening to this program called The Social. I'm not too sure I enjoy much of what goes on. Sometimes I just turn it off because what they discuss just makes you sick. But this little girl says, today we're discussing faithfulness in a relationship. And then the one says, I wouldn't stand my friend being unfaithful to me. The other says, I wouldn't, I'm not sure I would receive it, but as long as the person is unfaithful there, and then they come back without letting me know about it. But why don't you want to know about it? Because you know it's bad. The moment you know about it, it will disturb you. That faithfulness is required, not in some relationships, but in all relationships. You see, the very reason Paul tells Timothy, relate well with elderly men, relate well with elderly women, relate well with younger men, relate well with younger women. It says, be faithful in all these relationships. Give the kind of service where you're not found using these people to your personal benefit, even though they get hurt along the way. No, begin to think they're good and invest your life into them and your resources into them to bring benefit to them. And what he's saying, be a servant to all people. And think about how wonderful our relationships would be if all of us would turn out to be like that. You can go to anybody, you know they won't deceive you, they will not be dishonest with you, they will not harm you, they will not cause you pain, they will not shame you, they will not mock you. On the contrary, they just want your good, lift you up, puff you up, applaud you, just like that. Think about how wonderful life would be. Because you go anywhere and you know you have nothing to worry about. Sadly, our world is not like that. And the invitation is for you and me to come to the place where we make the world different. I want to be pleased, so let me go out and please. I don't want to be caused pain, so let me not cause others pain. I enjoy being served, let me go out and be the one who serves. I enjoy being joyful, let me go out and make others joyful. So whatever good I know there is to be, let me go out and give it. Not for my benefit, but for the benefit of the one that I'm giving service to. For that is God's way. He gets the ultimate glory, but doesn't improve on him. He is God and continues to be God. And the glory he received is no better than what he had before he even made good out of us. So he does it just to make us better and closer to him. That's what he glories in. Will we borrow that from our God and begin to invest in other people's lives for their good and not for our personal benefit? That is the servant God is looking for. But let me also examine myself not only as a servant. It also says there, master. So are you a master? There are those of us who are privileged to be in positions where we supervise others. We are kind of superiors. We are bosses. And that is a common thing. And it's easy to be bowed down to and almost worship in all institutions. Because who doesn't want to displease the boss? Because they either punish you or throw you out of work. So you'll be just almost worshiping them. But the story we read in Luke, Matthew, tells us how we should behave ourselves. He is a commander who actually says to this soldier, and you know there are no questions in the army, and he said, do this! Yes, sir! Mark, yes, sir! Go and die! Yes, sir! What? That's what it's like in the army. Even if they say, go and die, you go and die. Because if they are looking for the enemy, they don't know where fire is coming from, the commanding officer will say, Emmanuel, get up! Oh, you can't refuse, because you must get up. When you get fired at, the fire is coming from, they know where to attack. That's what it is. Authority, humanly speaking, is bowing down to one who is senior to you. But you notice the centurion about whom we read says, yes, I have that power, and I just give commands, and people do it. But he says, Lord, I don't want to be this powerful thing, throwing authority everywhere. I want to be one who is of help to others. And the one for whom I'm seeking help here is not myself, it's my servant. So he's giving service to his own servant. Somebody who should be bowing to him is the one bowing to that. He's looking at their need and addressing it. He's looking at their care and addressing himself to that. He's looking out to concerns them and he concerns himself with that. And that is what our Lord is telling us. If we're more privileged than others, we don't wield superiority over them and begin to boast. They are not like me, they are down, I am up. We would rather say, how can I use this resource that I have to be a blessing to these people so that they go out rescued from their pain, restored in their relationship, refreshed in everywhere, and beginning to feel somebody helped them along the way. That's what this centurion is doing. But are we doing it? Those of us who are servants in our homes, either sweep our yards or whatever, as the Lord would say, how many of us tell our servants when they've come in, from the field, now sit down and eat? Don't we rather say, prepare my meal? After all, they are servants. And that's what slaves used to be like in those days. Just something you use. Because they have no will, they have no ability of their own, you just at your mercy in every way. And the Lord is saying, that should change. You regard no one as somebody that you should just look down upon and crush. Rather see how you may invest in them and lift them up. That's the mastership. And he says, here's the reason. Both of you are accountable to God. And when it comes before God, the more authority you have, the more accountable you will be to him. How will you have saved other human beings when you are on earth? And we can't save other human beings well if we have not been knit at heart to God. That's where it begins. Because when you are God's, you begin to feel about people the way God feels about people. You begin to respect people the way God respects people. You begin to serve God people as God serves people. You begin to be in people's lives everything God wants to be in those people's lives. Are you that person? And that's why I say, brothers and sisters, there's no better service you can give to anybody than to come alive with God about us. So that people can say, you can only be who you are because God is in you. Can they see that in me? Can they see that in you? Those are the servants and masters God wants. And you can be that if you have the right standing with Christ. I hope you do. If you don't, you can get it now. You say, Jesus, here am I. Have me.